Hello, this is Dr. Babo, continuing on with Metaphysics of East and West. This is lecture 4. Let's start with a prayer. Lord, I thank you for this opportunity to minister. God, I ask for your revelation, Lord. We'd like to see and hear the wisdom, Lord, that we may truly live as a philosopher of faith. Thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, let's continue on with clapping. We all need clapping, some encouragement. We're going to continue with Metaphysica, 형이상학, or Metaphysics. And as I said over and over again, it's not about information, because information we got plenty of. We are really looking for inspiration and impartation. Let's have a little quick review of lecture 3. This is an airplane going by. Our Phnom Penh to my house is the path of the airplane. Well, our review, we talked about learning philosophy versus being a philosopher. And I said, what we're really going for is existential philosopher, one who really knows, does, and be, and incorporate both and where epistemology is ontology. And if you missed out, go back to lecture 3, 30-minute long. And we really talked about what it means to have Khmer pride. I reasoned that we have misrepresentation is because of the neoliberalism and how the globalization really promoted by really American-led global capitalism. Okay. And I say over and over again, there's nothing wrong with capitalism if it's done right. But when profit matters the most and lives don't matter, then we have trouble. And I've said that we really need to incorporate both, and just like you need to carry not only the newspaper, but also a philosophy book, and then learn to incorporate both. And that was part of the lecture. Well, but before my lecture begins, one of the students, well, actually several students asked, so Professor O, what brings you to Cambodia, and what does your wife do? Well, so I'm going to share a little bit about what my wife does in Cambodia. So before we begin lecture 4, oh, there she is. She's my angel. She's my favorite wife, by the way. And she has a thing called Oikos Ministry. No, did I say Oikos? I'm sorry. Oasis House, Cambodia. My favorite wife. This is her story, Jenny's story. Oasis House began now almost 5 years. She started developing her team, intercessors, prayers, worshiping. And when time came, she rented a house and launched a counseling center. And I mean, who's who of Christian world of Cambodia really came and really blessed us, which was fantastic. And we start having a small group leadership training. You know, this was for pastors and Christian leaders, and we started holding conferences in hotels, and then started doing outreach in the countryside, and really not only counseling but preaching, and a lot of times casting out demons. And then she organized a meeting where a lot of the counselors, NGO workers who already been doing counseling center in Phnom Penh area, and she just kind of became like a hub where they will come and share, and then we started doing staff care where the staff of NGO or churches will come and they use this beautiful facility. And Oasis House has launched a Facebook where they are now reporting. They said mental health is one of the important part in living. True, not only mental, physical. So they would all actually be part of the physical, like optometry outreach, which my sister came from America for, and then she would also minister to Korean missionaries' wives or Korean missionaries. They start training, taking people to training. This is one to Bali, and then they are certifying workers, and the workers will then go to start ministering Jenny has been ministering at the New Life Church with Pastor Tang Baek-hong and Simone for 14, 15 years, every year at Women's Conference, and organizing to outreaching to schools. And finally, Lina, one of our staff, now she's getting her master's at Torch Trinity in Korea right now. And yeah, our staff also got married, settled down, getting married. This is a fantastic story. So this is our OSS House staff working, serving the Lord together at OSS House. Well, Nit, the brother, now married, and he was actually scheduled to go Korea, but they're praying about possibility of staying. Well, let's begin. Let's begin our fourth lecture. Well, we are going to talk primarily 13 pages of Martin Heidegger, okay? And I told you that my interest is not giving you lots of information, but I want us to actually engage in philosophy, actually doing philosophy, not just knowing and informed about philosophy, but we're actually going to spend time doing philosophy. What do I mean by that? Well, Heidegger published his inaugural lecture at University of Freiburg in 1929. But in 1945, as he was publishing his fourth edition, he wrote a postscript and published as a new book. So this inaugural lecture, 13 page, and he developed on it, worked on it, and Heidegger published his fifth edition with a new introduction. Heidegger's primary metaphysical question is, what is nothing? Or in German, was ist nicht, right? Was ist nichts, right? And that's what we're going to talk about. Actually, I had students, about 12 students in my first lecture at RUPP. What I've done is I had them actually translate like almost page each from English to Khmer. And that was fantastic practice. And I mean, if you could actually do that while we're going through this, I don't know if we're going to go through the entire 13 page even, but still, that would really help you become a philosopher more than learning more about what all these dead philosophers have said and done, right? Let's be a philosopher, not learn philosophy. So Heidegger's first edition was highly criticized by peers as nihilism, and his logic was questioned. Therefore, Heidegger had to rewrite his introduction and postscript as he published a new edition. So what is metaphysics, right? And I told you already, we had 1 editor and 9 translators in our class, so I assigned them. If my RUPP students are watching this, yeah, you are there. So this was really awesome team. Start translating from the title and on, right? Well, let's take it word by word. I mean, only 13 pages. Title is What is Metaphysics by Martin Heidegger. What is metaphysics? The question awakens every expectation of discussion about metaphysics. This we will forego. Instead, we'll take up a particular metaphysical question. In this way, it seems we will let ourselves be transposed directly into metaphysics. Only in this way will we provide metaphysics the proper occasion to introduce itself. Our plan begins with the unfolding of metaphysical inquiry, then tries to elaborate the question to conclude by answering it. Wow, that's exactly what I said, didn't I? Wasn't it? You know, I said, let's not learn philosophy, let's do philosophy. And the way Martin Heidegger has an existentialist, influenced by Kierkegaard, he's also saying the same thing. You know, boring. Why would I define metaphysics for you? Let me ask you a metaphysical question, right? And let's do metaphysics. I like him, right? So, he starts. First paragraph. So everything's now in paragraphs. So you could download that paper and you could make it into paragraphs. So this is paragraph 1. Introduction is done. Now paragraph 1. Okay. See if you could translate into your own language. I don't know. Korean. Yeah, translate into Korean. If you're Khmer, well, Khmer version is done. So maybe I could post it and then you could check and see if it was a good translation. So let's go at it. The unfolding of metaphysical inquiry there was kind of subtitle. From the point of view of sound common sense philosophy in Hegel's words, the inverted world. What is invert, right? Now, remember, if you're a philosophy student or if you study philosophy and you're looking at my lecture and say, oh, he's going way too slow. Why is he even define the word inverted? Well, because it was in a way beginners introductory class. So and people were from a tech context where English was not their primary language or heart language. So these are the students who have to learn English as their second language and trying to read Martin Heidegger. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I had to go through that. You know, I had to learn English and I had to read Heidegger when I was 17, 18 at philosophy student. I struggled. So I really want to bring it. And you know, please, you know, if you think like you're monolingual, you speak English only, and you're gonna make fun of the bilingual people, my goodness, please don't. They speak two languages, right? And not only that, I told my Cambodian student, I said, you know, don't worry about people making fun of your English. Your Khmer is way better, you know, and matter of fact, your English is way better than my Khmer, my Cambodian, you know. And so, yeah, so let's take it slow, and we're gonna go paragraph by paragraph, right? What does inversion means, right? It's upside down or the opposite position, order and arrangement. So why does he bring Hegel, right? Well, did he mean Hegel inverted? What did you mean by that? So now I'm teaching not only philosophy, but doing philosophy. What do I mean by that? Well, you could use Google Scholar, and you could see right here that you're using Google Scholar, right? Not Google. So when you use Google Scholar and then type in Hegel's inverted world, right here, and then it gives you a JSTOR article, right? So what you do is then you click here, right? Like this finger, right? And then you are transported to that section, right? And then you go through that in Hegel's inverted world, and then wow, guess what? You could read online free of charge, right? Isn't it fantastic? Yeah, amazing. You could read it for free. And then of course you need to log in. You could register most of these sites free of charge, right? And then you could have read online only, right? And then actually got in there, start reading, right? So, you know, these days, if you really set your mind to it, you could study anywhere. You could study any topic, right? You could study Hegel's inverted world till your heart's content. I mean, really. So, so examination of appearing consciousness as a pure consciousness. What the chef, right? The inverted world for Hegel is that. I'm not going to get into that. I'm not teaching Hegel right now. But simply put, the Hegel's scheme is logic, nature, and Geist. What does that mean by that? You know, for him, the science, right, is the spirit, right? Geist. And it's very similar to what Plato says. Platonic view is like that. Okay, is the philosophy of the spirit. So a symbolic inversion from the art, it's sort of like this. So philosophy, art, music, all that actually. I mean, if you're truly a philosopher, then you'll be an artist. And if you're an artist, you cannot not be a philosopher. If you're a true musician, of course you'll be a philosopher, right? Think about Bob Dylan. Anyways, I'm going too much. Okay, so this is what you could show artistically, the inverted world. Okay, so that's what inverted world is. And then Hence, the peculiar nature of our undertaking requires preliminary sketch. This will take shape about twofold character of metaphysical interrogation. Okay, what does that mean? A preliminary sketch is something like this. You know, you draw, right? And then you start filling it in, right? And then voila. So this is kind of a twofold thinking. So Martin Heidegger, he wants to ask the question, what is, or what is nothing? Was ist nicht? And his argument is, if you know nothing about nothing, how can you say anything about something, right? So how do you communicate your philosophy non-verbally, right? And it's a different realm. You know, actually, this is Herbert Dreyfus. He was a professor of UC Berkeley, wrote this book on existentialism, companion of phenomenology and existentialism, and he had this beautiful lecture. Now, I'm going to turn it on, and then I have to turn it off because...
Bert, I'm fascinated with metaphysics because it purports to be able to tell us how we can really understand what reality is. And I've been talking to many analytic philosophers who have their approach to the nature of metaphysics and reality.
I'm sorry, because I don't own copyright to that. So you could go back. Actually, this is terrible. Not, you know, but that's as best I can do at this point, because Hubbard trying to talk about what it means to be trying to explain Martin Heidegger, but man, he as if he was talking about this sports, you know, American football, not you know, football like soccer that we know, but American football is very complex. You know, the rules and regulations, and it's just crazy. You know, there are so many regulations, and people say, "Oh, this is fantastic! I love it." I don't know. Personally, I don't like American football. I just don't get it. You know, it's so complicated, and it's like, come on, just kick the ball, man. You know, that's my opinion. So, I mean, when he talks about simple thing like reality, it seems very complicated to me. So, but when you try to explain American football to Cambodians, they'll say, we don't understand. Why? Because Cambodia, maybe they know ping pong better than American football, right? So imagine, the ping pong player trying to understand all these rules and regulations, and I mean, it's like, to them it's like, nonsense, it's crazy, right? And can you imagine, putting these two, the top players from two sports compete one another, right? Wow, we have problem, because, the ping pong player will be killed, right? Because we're playing different sports, and yet rules of engagement is different. And then, actually I found George Lakoff, and he's talking now about how does metaphysics reveal reality.
Let's start with time. When you start studying time in the languages of the world, you find that certain metaphors persist, language after language after language. Time is understood.
Okay, this is as far as I can go also. Also, that one you could also find in YouTube and watch. But well, my point is this, because actually when I compare the both, I asked them, my students, who did you find it more easier to understand? I know it was very difficult for them to understand. It's their English is their second language. And yet they said, you know what? We found Lakoff a little better because he was not playing football, but he was sort of like playing tennis. Well, tennis and ping pong pretty similar, right? So let's play ping pong with American football reference. Then, man, it's going to be crazy, right? Because all the top ping pong players in the world are Asians, right? Well, I love this quote by Benjamin Franklin. We are all born ignorant, but one must work hard to remain stupid. Okay, and so people think that, oh, you don't understand our philosophy, or you must be stupid. No, really, sir. It's just you're playing different sports. We come from the different angle. I'm a ping pong player, so I don't want to play your football, right? I don't want to be 6'7" and 250 pounds, and I just want to play my ping pong, right? So then I bring in George Patterson. He's one of my philosophical heroes. Knowing someone's philosophy requires you know who he is or she is first. I got to know him through actually Soren Kierkegaard Society. And I'll explain. And this is also a very good point. Well, if you're going to study someone's philosophy, read their biography first, because reading their biography will actually teach you a whole lot about what they really believe and what they teach, right? So it's very important. So if you really get to know George Patterson, then you really know who he is. I mean, look he is. I mean, he's chair of Divinity, right? And phenomenology, religious life, existentialism, Kierkegaard, Dostoevsky, and Heidegger. Oh my goodness. 3 people that I studied, right? And then he's also into visual arts, right? This is an incredible man. After 14 years as parish priest in Church of England, he was the dean of King's College, Cambridge. Then taught practical theology 2 years at the University of Denmark before becoming Lady Margaret Professor of Divinity at University of Oxford. Wow, right? Crazy man, right? His main emphasis is Kierkegaard. And actually when Kierkegaard Society was having a conference at Christ Church, I was there. I was there. Beautiful, beautiful. Do you remember this scene? Do you remember the scene? This is where, you know that scene? What was that guy? The kids' Harry Potter. Yeah, Harry Potter. Well, that's the campus. And actually, I stay there during my Oxford stay. Well, this for like, I stay at Oxford 2 years permanently, but one time I think I spent like 6 weeks here. And they were having a Kierkegaard conference literally walking distance. And he's like, so of course I went there, I met him, and he was fantastic Kierkegaardian, People start asking him like, sir, what about this? Kierkegaard said this, Kierkegaard said that, and then finally he opens up Kierkegaard book, the original book, and start reading in Danish. Wow, you're the man, right? Well, there's a George Patterson's lecture. Let's listen in.
Heidegger was one of this generation who were born in the 1880s. Karl Barth.
Doesn't he look like a rock star? I love. Well, I cannot continue because then I'll be breaking the YouTube regulations. So please look that up at YouTube and listen to that, because it was really well made, professionally made. But I'm going to actually teach out of his teaching and out of what he said about Heidegger. Okay. Wow. I don't think I could finish this in 30 minutes today. Review of George Patterson's lecture. Well, he goes down a little brief biography of Heidegger. Then he talks about how before he dies, Heidegger wrote a book and said, when I die, please publish my last book. And when he died, they did. The title of the book is Only God Can Save Us. Because of all the technological innovation of Heidegger's time. Can you believe that? Probably I don't know what they invented at Heidegger's time, but anyways, I'm glad he wasn't living in our century. And then trained as a would-be Catholic philosopher, our friend Rudolf Bultmann. 1920, he's lecturing on Aristotle and Plato, engaged in classical philosophy. So he was a classical philosopher. And then 1920, Heidegger is influenced by Aristotle's metaphysical question. What is a being? What is a being to be? Aristotle's foundation is his thought. So this is the main themes of his book, Being and Time. Ontological philosophy to Catholic theology, Augustinian, Luther, Kierkegaard, and were treated and incorporated into his thought. Time and being, that's his famous book, right? Do we know what we mean when we say being? Heidegger does not give answer, but want us to engage in this discussion. We as human are beings, that being is an issue, right? And then he brings in the whole Dasein. Dasein is a very important term. I'm going to say it over and over again. What is Dasein? So, Patterson explains it like Dasein is like saying, here I am, apostrophe and question mark at the same time. Here I am, but am I here, right? It's not ego facing the world, but being in the world. It's like thrown into the world, right? Thrown into the world. Question of how do we know either we or the world is real? It's not where you should start, but that you are out there, right? So when people said, hey, is this real? Is this red remote button made in China real? Before you ask that, are you out there, right? That is the more primary question. So, what is a chalk? I start using it. I get to know it. I made this stick 20 years ago with my son, right? To point things at the whiteboard at the time. Now it's like white, the monitor, right? Start using it. Then you experience it, right? Here I am, right? Here I am. That's the ontological philosophy, the Catholic theology. And so, Dasein. So I now start a group called Kamai Dasein, KD. Our secret term is KD. How's KD doing? Khmer Dasein. That's where I bring in God. Who is this God? Right? Who is this God? I am that I am, the whole being, right? And it's in connection with what being is, right? Who is God, right? Well, in Exodus 3:13, and he said, certainly I will be with thee. Okay, so what you need to do is look at the Hebrew. Right? But in Exodus 3:14, right? God said unto Moses, I am that I am. What? What's going on? Right? Let's read that together. Right? What does it say? It says, Heya. Heya actually is a verb and verb of being, right? It was mentioned 3,562 times, Old Testament, right? And it has the number. So when you look up the strong Hebrew number, and Hebrew's there, it's Hebrew text, and pronunciation in English is there, a number of times mentioned in the Old Testament, right? That's what he calls scholarship. It's just crazy how in olden days they actually counted all of them, right? Right. So in the Old Testament is like that. New Testament, same thing. You got the strong number Greek, and the pronunciation, and how many times it was mentioned in the New Testament. So haya is to be, a verb of being. That's why I brought that in. Right? We're talking about being. So we could approach it more philosophically. So if this is so, then it should really look like this. I am, right? I will be that I will be. I am that I am actually means I will be that I will be. I am the becoming one. That's my translation, right? Well, 맞다오셔. What do you think? What do you think, right? So let me go back again because I think I missed a point here. Sorry. Here, right here, look. I will be, heya. But they translate to I am, that I am, that I am, right? But because it's the same word, that you don't, that's just their translation, but the way that I translate, or way that I take it philosophically, is to say that I will be, that I will be. If that is so, then it should look like this. I am the becoming one. Okay? What do you think? What's your thought on that? Think about that. I'm not lecturing on, I'm challenging you to think for yourself. 맞다, do you agree? Do you disagree? Why? Why do you disagree? Hey, please disagree, right? And I'm challenging over and over again to my students to please disagree with me. And they said, no, but professor, you said it. No, I don't, please. What's your opinion? What do you think? 맞다, please, right? So it is my challenge. You think about that. I really rushed through, but yeah. And if you could find that YouTube, stop, log in, and watch that. But listen on the Patterson's lecture. I mean, I already shared what he said, and I should have gone a little slower. But maybe tomorrow I could go in more details, or next lecture. So before you come to next lecture, which will be 5th, watch the movie Matrix, okay? Because we're going to talk about what is real, right? And read the 11 pages of Heidegger much as you can. And try to understand. If you're an English speaker, you got it really good. If you're not, well, it will take some time, right? Because primarily my metaphysics is doing metaphysics, not talking about the history of metaphysics and who said this, who said what. I really don't care. I really think you should be engaged in, just like Martin Heidegger said, let's engage in metaphysical question. That would be the best way to introduce metaphysics. So yeah, please join, subscribe, and ring that bell so next lecture goes up, that you'll be notified. So hopefully that it'll be a wonderful time of learning philosophy, doing philosophy, and becoming an existential philosopher. Amen. Thank you. See you.